Hi, this week I'm going to talk to you about two things. One is the use of the words says, states, talks about. I sent an announcement and I said, don't do it. So it's perfectly clear to me if you didn't look at that announcement or you didn't absorb it. So from here on in, it's going to be minus a point. I didn't really do much about it this time except remind you. And it's just an exercise in academic specificity. Okay, so we're doing that. Here is a screen share of the announcement. Okay, so now's the time. You're going to learn to integrate quotation. So you're going to use words other than says and talks about. Some of you use the famous plop technique where you just plop a quote in because you're not really sure how to get it in a sentence. And that is sort of work, but here's an example of how to do it. So you can look at the example. It's just a little lesson I've given to you. But you do need to look at the announcements because it does give you helpful tips for what it is you're being asked to do. And it will hold your hand a little bit during this MLA business. Okay. So the other thing I want to talk to you about is using parentheses at the end of a sentence. Adichie, okay? We're not going to do that. Just forget about it. Don't do it. Here, we are going to make it crystal clear what the source is. So I'm going to go share this with you. And we are going to look at why we cite. All you want to do is be crystal clear what source this is coming from. And if you are discussing a single text like Adichie, in this instance, that's what we're doing. You just set out in the TED Talk by Chimamanda Adichie called the Danger of a Single Story. She describes and then you begin your discussion and you never have to do that whole thing again. You just use her name. Adichie notes. You don't put the timestamp or anything. She narrates, she reports, she remembers, she makes the point. Okay, and there I gave you a word bank where you can find other words other than says. Okay, so the thing of it is, once that's established in a sentence, it's redundant to then use it again at the end of the sentence. Adichie, some of you are doing that because you've seen it somewhere. But the only reason to put these parenthetical descriptions of the source is when you have a whole lot of sources and they're getting juggled and it's scientific and you got to make sure you're giving everybody credit as you go. Whereas here we're more focused on linguistic articulation of a logical discussion in which it's very clear what the source is at all times because of the way you've brilliantly designed your sentences. I know, sounds a little bit harder, and it is. So that's the thing. So now look at what I said. I mean business. I'm just going to take off a point. If you put something in parentheses, if you put any sort of parenthetical citation is what we call it, because our job here is to make it clear in the sentences, and just minus a point for using says or talks about, or even states. And if you practice it, you will see that when you use more descriptive terms, it all just, narrows in on the specificity of the ideas you're trying to relate and create as you go. Okay. So there you go. That as me talking smack about this week's assignments. All right. So you have to look at the announcements. I'm going to send this little video and an announcement, and remember to look at the class notes. And just in case you're thinking about it already, on the class notes, there's workshops every Thursday that give you little tips on that. And they know all about citation and either you're, well, for us, we're not using the parentheses at the end because it's important to get the skill of describing and being clear about the source continuously, initially, continuously, and throughout. Okay. And after you've introduced the source, this is just a little tip on MLA. Once you've introduced the author and the title, you're only going to refer, as you can see, to the author's last name after it's all introduced. Okay. That is what I have to say. And, carry on. I wrote you notes. I will show you this. When I go to the assignment, Remember that I can write you a note over here. I can write you a note. I don't think I said much to Morgan, but sometimes I make comments in, yes, I make little, look at all these comments. All right. So, oh, I'm not sure I shared that. Oh, let me show the screen. There you go. I make comments on the Google Doc and I make comments sometimes right here. Hi, Morgan. I'm just doing an example. Okay, so make sure that you're taking a glance at those because sometimes I'm giving you tips as we go. All right. So that is what I have to say for today. I've graded all the things that I have so far and they look great. But those are the tips going forward. Okay. So good work and carry on.